Okay. So we'll call the meeting back to order. And we're on to 9.3. So I assume Gareth, you're coming up.
Morning, everyone. So yeah, what we have today is bringing back a set of draft amendments to the municipal planning strategy to outline and sort of extend our public participation program. This is in response to a provincial bill that introduced some new requirements for how we engage with our neighboring municipalities, and essentially doing that earlier in our approval process. So these amendments have been, well, they initially came to council for a brief discussion. We sent them back, had a public information meeting. We then also had
Anybody show up for that?
it was pretty sparsely attended, I would say. There wasn't a lot, and given the nature of the subject matter, that wasn't a huge.
And you have to do it anyway, so.
But yeah, it's part of the process. And so then we did have, in this case, we had a joint meeting of the municipal planning and the village planning advisory committee, because it impacts them both. And rather than have everyone come out on 2 nights, we thought it would be a nice chance to get everyone together. So we did that on the 16th of March, presented the amendments and had some brief discussion. There was a recommendation from, or the recommendation that came from the committee involved a slight change or a proposed change to the draft amendments. And I guess I'll outline that now. So in the, this is in policy 86 on the in the attachment. So this is the piece that outlines the early notification of abutting municipalities. The provincial bill, and basically the way that this had been worded previously, was that this early notice needs to be sent before the first advertisement for the public hearing appears. But it didn't specify exactly when. It just says it has to be before that first notice of public hearing. The discussion and ultimate recommendation from the joint committee meeting was to clarify this by saying that early notice happens essentially at the time that council first directs the file to staff. I think that, it does a couple of things. It gives us a defined time. So rather than saying just before, it's now we have a specific timeline. It also gives the abutting municipalities the maximum amount of time to provide comments. So in theory, if we didn't have this defined, we could send it to them 3 days before the first notice appears, versus in this case, it's still not a defined timeline, but it's as early as we know about it, they'll know about it, basically. So it increases the amount of time.
That doesn't cause any grief to you people.
No, I don't think so. And in some ways, it actually is helpful, because it gives us a set. We know when, as soon as we get direction from council, we send that notice off, and then that checkbox is done, and we could move on to doing a staff report and committee meetings and that kind of thing. So seemed like a reasonable suggestion to staff. So with that change, or that proposed change, everything else was accepted and recommended by the committee. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer that. But otherwise, in terms of options, we are basically at the point of giving first reading to the draft amendments. And so we've looked at the calendar, and if council is prepared to give first reading today, the earliest available date for a public hearing would be the 21st of April. So in terms of options, option one would be to accept the recommended change from the committees and set a date for April 21st, or as with any public hearing, this is just the first available, so we could certainly go beyond that if there was.
Can't imagine anybody having any interest.
I'll move that we send this to first reading.
Second that motion.
And with the amendment.
Yeah.
Moved and seconded, discussion.
No, it was I was at that meeting, and it was a good discussion, and it does make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Oh, motion carried. Thank you, Gary. Nine point four.
Okay, morning, everyone. So I wanted to present a proposal related to the addition of a staff member for the Community Development and Recreation Department team. And just before I get into some of the slides, just want to note that, before making a recommendation of a staff position, there, it's not done with little thought, it's done with a fair amount of thought and consideration. And so just let you know that we've been thinking about this for quite a period of time. And after thinking back over the past year, I actually wish I would have come in a little bit sooner for this, because we have been very busy within the department and are keeping our heads above water, but barely when it comes to the volume of applications and things that are coming in right now to deal with. So just thought I'd mention that just before we get started. So in terms of rationale for this additional position, there's a couple of main reasons, and the main one being the approval of the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw that was approved in 2020. And of course, you all recall that with that, the new planning documents, we have some new zoning, and so in a broader area of the municipality. So we're really thinking of that kind of south of the Highway 3, where we have a significant amount of our population. We do have additional requirements for permits in that area. And so in our first year, we saw some increase. And so that was, of course, at the same time where we were seeing some increase in building activity happening at that time. And so I did decide at that point to give it another year and see what would happen. And so you'll turn over to the next slide. What we're seeing is well, actually I'll get back to the stats in just a moment. So the second rationale for the change is just related to the amount of building activity that's happening right now. And of course, I think everyone is quite familiar with the amount of interest in development, whether it be housing or whatnot. There's a lot of interest in building activity right now. So what the result has been in our department is longer times to process those applications, given all those factors together. So we track everything in the department through software called Town Suite. So as soon as an application comes in, it gets registered. And then by the time we track all the activity with the file, and then to the day that it gets approved. And so I just have a few stats there. So if you look at the average number of days to receive a development permit, so in 2018-19, so that just prior to when our new MPS and LEB would come into effect, we had a 12-day turnaround time. And by 2021, that was extended to 20 days in order for us to turn around. So of course, in the office, whether it's the staff or at my level, customer service is priority number one, and we want to be able to service our public as quickly as we can. And so I'm a little disheartened with the amount of time that it's taken, as are you, but we do everything we can at the staff level to get those applications done and through as quickly as possible. But it's just due to the volume, it's taking extra time. And if you look at the average number of days to receive an approved subdivision, of course, 2018-19, we had 73 days. And this past year, it's been about 92 days. So it's taking significantly longer to get those in and get those out and approved.
Yeah.
So the following couple of slides, just some stats, just to give you a good sense of where we are with the volume of applications that are coming in. So the development permit applications received, you can see in that sheet, if you look through from kind of 2010 right through to 2018, it's fairly steady around that 100 mark. Once it gets to 100 and above, you start to see some challenges in dealing with that. And so if you look at that 2019 to 21, of course, there's a significant increase. Right now. Yeah, so it's high. It's really high right now.
Yes.
And then the same if you go to the next slide, subdivision applications, you can see a similar trend. That if you look at the 2021 numbers up to 84, so the numbers aren't as dramatic, but still a very, very significant increase in the amount of subdivision activity that's taking place. And one of the things I just want to note with that is if you look at, if you look at subdivision or the development approvals, that doesn't capture all the activity that happens. So there are some people that will come in, they just want to have a conversation with the development officer around, what's possible on my land, or I have this idea, can I do that on my land? And so those type of conversations. So some of those never actually materialize into an actual application, but there's still that service I would provide to people to have those conversations. And so these stats are great, and they show a picture, but they don't show, I guess, the entirety of the work that's happening by staff on those particular.
Derek, you had a question?
Yeah, I just, is this a position that will be shared with the home bay, or that'll be just for us?
So good question. So in our intermunicipal service agreement that we have with the town of Mohone Bay, we do have a development officer that provides that service of that work. And so I guess we haven't come to that point to decide exactly how we're going to split the work between the two development officers. So of course, Heather is our current senior development officer, and this would be a second. And so we'll determine how we're going to split that work, whether we have one staff focus on providing that service to Mohone Bay for those hours that we have, or if it'll be a combination. It might depend on the files that come in or whatnot. So we will be figuring that out as
I think
the positions approved.
clearly from the numbers, the increase is here, not in the home bay. And I think we need a voter development officer to our particular municipality. And I'd like to take a look at that sharing arrangement.
Yeah, so it could be, that absolutely, it is a portion of that position right now. And so I would say that absolutely we would have one full-time dedicated development officer for the municipality of Chester. And then a portion of the second development officer time would be used towards Mohone Bay. But exactly how the files work out and who works on what, we'll determine that.
So presently, present development officer,
A portion.
what portion is from Mohone Bay and what portion is from the municipality?
Yeah, so it's a good question. Right now, the development officer spends a half a day a week in Mohone Bay. And so that's part of some of the challenges that we have, though, are dealing with Mohone Bay inquiries outside of that half a day. And so, similar to the customer service that we provide in Chester, we want to have a good customer service to the staff in Mohone Bay as well. And so we try to do as much as we can within that time. Sometimes it will spill outside of those hours as well.
But I think it's fair to say that we're spending more than half a day on the home bay work.
Yes.
Yeah, I think let's talk spade here.
I don't want to get too heavy involved in that, but I think there's,
I do.
I know, but some of this is contract negotiations.
I understand.
And there's probably a necessity for us to have that discussion about whether we increase the fee or just stop it.
Later this morning is our intention in closed session is to
I'd
have.
like to have that discussion. That's
Yeah,
where.
I know you're down. It's just,
I think we
it's
need
contract
to,
negotiations.
because the wait times are far too long, and we all recognize that.
Yeah.
I'll speak to this. I mean, you can continue on with your defense for this position. I don't know if you want to, but I don't think you probably need to.
We need.
I think that we created through our own policy an additional burden to the department, and then we didn't provide the support for it, or at least approval for you to get the support. So I can recognize this. I also recognize that in a period of growth, I see it in the private sector, that you oftentimes will experience shortage of labor for some period of time, and you need to have that for some time so you understand what the need is. And that's what's normal. So having an increased wait time for some period of time so you can understand what the load is, that's normal. And I would say you shouldn't feel bad about that, because that's part of understanding what your response will be. You don't want to over capacitize when you, so this is one way to do it, and it's probably the smartest way to do it. So it's common in any growth situation if you're in the private sector or the public sector. I personally don't have a problem with this. I think it makes perfect sense. And, I'm looking forward to the conversation about Mohone Bay. I think that we have a lot in common with Mohone Bay. So I'm looking forward to having that chat.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Like, to me, it's a no-brainer. We absolutely need position. And it's for a variety of reasons. And we also have a growth strategy. We're investing in infrastructure to promote growth. So if we think that it's not going to get worse.
Mr. Warden, I agree. And I support this, but I just want to have a bigger conversation, which I understand we will have, so that's, I'm happy.
Yeah, and that was part of the other piece that I was gonna mention that, maybe is not captured here is just, overall municipality, we get a very good sense that that council is really interested in supporting that growth and development. And so we don't want to find ourselves in a position where we're encouraging growth and at the same time, we're not able to be responsive to staff and to those, when those applications come in. We want to have our development office to be able to spend time talking with developers and talking with property owners. And right now, we're feeling very rushed in doing that.
I hear complaints. Yeah, Floyd, you had something?
Well, I
before
just
you-
had a question. Yeah, I know when we originally did all the zoning changes, that we made a decision on not any charge for some of the development permits. And there was a number there, and I can't forget what level that was. But I was just wondering if there's any idea on how many of these permits that we aren't charged for, the 317. Like, I know there's a level. I don't remember the level or number, whatever it is.
So one of the pieces of the budget discussion that we can bring up is our fees policy. And so for the fees policy, that captures what we charge for and what we don't charge for. And so that can be something, I know we've talked about just briefly, but that can be maybe something that we bring up during. the
Well,
budget
yeah, I was just
discussion,
wondering,
is
is it a
fees
big
policy.
number or like it's, there's 317, for example.
Now, how many are we charging?
71
How many
Chester.
are we? Yeah.
And are we happy to not be charged for it? If not, I think we need to
Yeah.
revisit
Maybe
that.
revisit
Because
that.
we're in the staff person, we need to pay. for it.
I agree that we should probably revisit that. It's separate from this discussion, but
It is, but
also
part of
it's
it.
a cousin to this discussion.
Yeah, yeah, because when we did that for the purpose of trying to make it more palatable to the public to make these changes.
But seeing these numbers, I think we need to revisit that. Right? And, these are the numbers.
Yeah.
It's just a question on it. I mean, how many, how the department works, but I just hope that, they need the help, that it translates into, because you hear from developers and builders, like, where's my permit? Like, what's going on? So I just hope it can translate enough of change to warrant what we're planning to do. Not that we don't need it, absolutely we do. But, because, when you add staff, and it's to Honor's point, you need it now, but I mean, anyway, that's my concern.
Yeah, you're hoping the wait times drop.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but do we also have a growth strategy, so it all depends on how that growth goes.
Well, that's right. Yeah.
That's how it is, that's normal.
Yeah.
It will drop for some time, and then we'll grow like a goldfish to the size of its aquarium.
Yeah,
And at some point, we'll be too big again, and then
And we'll-
we'll
I mean,
feel
that's a good
pain,
problem to
and
have.
that pain will trigger the demand for another position. It's just like a sawtooth, it's very natural.
yeah.
So it will take a little bit of time,
To sort
to
that
go through the
out.
hiring process and all that.
Okay, I think from what I can gather, we're prepared to move forward, so it's great. Somebody prepared to move the hire person? Second? That's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Create the
And we'll
position.
include it in the budget and you will receive a budget document with. So yes.
Second discussion. All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Yeah, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, I'll stay for the next item as well.
Oh, yeah.
So the district application, so everyone will recall that February 28th was the deadline for our district grants.
Yeah,
And so the application that you have in front of you
did come in
it
before.
is not new. So this was an application that came in previously, and it came in right at the time when Councillor Wells was brand new.
My first meeting.
It was his first meeting, and I think at that time, Councillor Wells had agreed to fund $500 out of a $1,500 request. And had asked that we could have the opportunity to revisit that in the future. And so I guess this is revisiting. And so I think that the request is to approve the remaining $1,000 from that original request.
I had asked them for a budget, I wanted to see it, I did want to see how it was run. Being newbie at that point, I didn't want to put all my eggs in one basket. Anyway, I'm recommending that we approve that additional $1,000. That was part of the original.
1,500, isn't it?
They got 500.
They already got five.
We
Oh,
gave
yeah,
them
okay,
500,
yeah,
This is for the
yeah,
additional
that's
1,000
right,
that they
yeah.
requested.
Yeah.
Moved to second discussion. All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried.
Thank you.
Copy of the letter municipal units regarding appointment of accessibility advisory committee members.
Yeah, so council, the 5 municipalities are partners in accessibility advisory committee. There's community members that sit on that committee as well as elected officials. In the mandate document for this committee, the mayors and wardens for Lunenburg County are the nominating committee. So they consider community applications and are recommending 3 appointments, 2 for, they're all 3-year terms, but staggered. The idea is that you have some continuity and some new voices participating in the advice that that committee provides to their council. So you can see there are 3 recommendations. They include appointing Sheila Landry and Bruce Walsh for 3-year terms, and to appoint Peggy McCullough till the end of September of this year. That 3rd appointment is to replace I think it's a resignation on the committee, and Ms. McCullough would be eligible for a 2nd appointment if she's interested in reapplying. So
Yeah, I'm gonna make a motion to approve Sheila, Bruce, and Peggy for their 2 3-year terms and 1 till the end of September 1st, 2022.
Seconded.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Now, I'll just say that Sheila Landry, was an employee at Bonnie Lee Farm, so that's great news. We have some local input.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. And just because Garth is still in the room, I wonder if we could go to the outdoor dining first and then do the provincial budget second.
It's actually Aaron.
It's actually Aaron.
Yeah. Oh, yes, okay, sorry. Yeah. Well, she's here too.
The team.
Yeah.
So we're looking for an update on outdoor dining right now.
It did come up at one of the presentations we had. I'm having trouble.
Garth? From Garth?
No,
Jonathan?
It was the traffic study.
yeah,
Oh,
Yeah, traffic study,
Yeah.
yes.
and it came up, and there seemed to be a will for us as a council.
To do something.
To do something, and we're getting close to that time, so I have to put on the agenda just to get an update, because I don't know where it is.
Yes, no.
I know I don't know where it is.
So we did receive direction from council to pursue a permanent bylaw because of the last 2 years where we temporarily suspended enforcement of it because of COVID and the implications of that on our restaurants. So staff did develop a draft bylaw, which was sent to the province February 4th. And it's sent to the province because they own the area that the sidewalk cafes would be on. So they have, since February 4th, the traffic group has reviewed it, our regional rep has reviewed it, and they are waiting on their legal review. And it has been sitting with legal review. I followed up.
And lawyers.
I followed up the beginning of this week.
Yeah.
The end of last week. And I did communicate to the restaurants who participated in the last 2 years. I've updated them because I know that they're probably looking at their summer season, purchasing outdoor dining, possibly new tables and chairs. I'm not sure. So I did want to give them the heads up. And so they're aware of where we're at right now and where it's sitting with the province. I did follow up last week. They said that it's at the top of they're currently reviewing it. So I'm going to follow up again tomorrow and ask, what does that mean for timelines? And if they can give me a timeline, I will communicate that to the 3 restaurants who participated in the last 2 years.
Is that good enough, Derek?
A little confused. I was told one time we didn't have a bylaw. Now I'm told that we suspended the bylaw. I'm just trying to figure out what we have in place.
So,
I'm getting mixed messages.
so we will probably need to do some amendments, I think, to our
Our
own land use bylaw. Is that right, Garth?
Don't believe so.
No? Okay. So we do have, go ahead.
Well, because of the state of emergency.
Yeah.
Which was the trigger. So we council just agreed that we weren't changing anything, but we always have
We weren't
discretion on
enforcing.
enforcement.
What were we not enforcing is what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, they were operating a business on public
The land use
property.
bylaw.
Land use
So
bylaw.
we didn't have a bylaw that we suspended.
No,
No,
Okay.
But there was no permit either, like they.
we just didn't enforce the existing laws.
We do that all the time.
Well, try not
I mean,
to.
that's part of, we got all kinds of things that we're not enforcing.
sure. This was just a formal procedure that if they followed certain guidelines that were spelled out, the council would not.
But now we're putting a specific bylaw for this. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, well,
Yes, because the emergency is gone, in terms of the state of emergency.
Well, theoretically.
Theoretically, so I think the underpinnings of our previous decisions.
The declaration of an emergency is gone.
Yeah.
To say emergency is gone, I think is overstated.
So I think maybe if I could just chime in, I think had the restaurants installed closed down sidewalks and without permission of the council, we would have received a complaint. And we would have responded to that complaint and would have asked them to remove the infrastructure that they put on public. And so we, anticipating that, staff brought it to council and asked council to intentionally direct staff to not enforce what we otherwise would have. And then also gave us direction to look at drafting a sidewalk bylaw. And so it is that drafted that that is currently with the provincial government. And I know in the traffic impact study, there was advice to look at other jurisdictions. I know we have done that. So
We've been provided with a copy of that bylaw around the council. Maybe it's in the package.
well, I mean, it hasn't come back,
That's-
so,
no, it
so
hasn't.
you're gonna have lots of
I
opportunity.
know.
Yeah.
I know, but it hasn't been circulated draft.
No.
So that's not, I haven't missed that.
No, we're
well,
just,
we wouldn't want to circulate it. For example, the province says this clause has to be removed. We will not support that. And a bylaw will require 2 readings and it will require public notice.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we won't see it until.
until we have some deal made with the province.
The first year that we suspended enforcement, there was no sidewalks, really, like actual sidewalks that were closed that pushed people out onto the road. And last year, that did happen. So TIR, we worked with TIR, got some approval that saw us take up, that saw one of the parking spots in front of the folks so close off. And so in just from what came back to us last year from TIR, the feedback we received was that something similar to that would not be approved this year, so that they would be looking for something more permanent, that would be like a permanent sidewalk that would allow people to safely go out onto the road
Safety
and
is
stuff
the
like
issue,
that.
I
So
understand.
that's part of our challenge, is getting TIR to approve a standard that would be, and this is the only place in the province that we're aware of that is not in a town where TIR is involved, because everywhere else where they have outdoor dining generally is a town where the town has authority over the roads. And we don't have that, so we have to work with TIR to get that approval. The only other place I'm aware of that's looked at something similar is Tatamagouche. And they're using us as a model right from last year, I
The
believe.
blind
So
leading the blind.
it's a little bit, so we're trying to get something and work with TIR that would potentially be used as a model in other areas.
Is there an expectation that we will have something this year?
We would like to, that was
I know.
what we,
I think we will.
our intention.
Expect an expectation of something this year.
That's the intention, but
I know, but
yeah,
you
it's-
get-
Depends on the
It just
province.
depends
what
on
we're
the
driving for.
I
province.
understand,
Yeah.
getting any vibes from the province, what they might do,
no.
just to wait and see.
But it's hard to predict the timing in other organizations.
One way street.
Anyway, that's good. I work.
Aaron, I'm sure that the,
Gareth wants to speak if we can.
I was just gonna say, like Aaron said, we've been doing everything we can to put the ball in their court, and it is, and the only indication I think is the process we just went through on uniform signage, which was
3 years.
very slow. Hopefully it will not be, we're doing everything we can, but we're not the decision makers on this, so.
So one last question, I promise, last question. If the province doesn't mandated was part of the province, now it's 10 years they've haven't dealt with it, so I get the delay. But would we, in fact, do another temporary suspension?
That's the challenge of TIR won't approve
Anymore.
anything else that would allow, so they may approve individual ones, like they may approve what they approved in front of Tanner and Co. and El Fermenta, because it's a different situation there, but to go and take up parking spots and push into the pathway of the road, they probably would not approve that again. So even if we suspended it, they still have to get TIR approval, and they indicated that they wouldn't approve that again.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay, Abdel, sorry.
Yeah, that was, because I know that they have done that for the other ones, and the other restaurants that are on the street, like the tavern and that we're talking about. I mean, if you can let one do it, it must be tough to tell the other ones that they can't.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the challenge is there, and I'm sure they would want that anyway. If they would want that as part of our bylaw.
Yes.
I'm sure the restaurants would. I mean, if I wanted to use outdoor space in the summer, especially in Chester.
Yes.
So hopefully.
Yes, we drafted it to be consistent
Yeah.
across any restaurant who would apply
Yeah.
for the requirements, and then the feedback from the province.
So I guess, Sam, what would happen if they allow the pizza shop in Tanner and Co. to do that, and then they won't allow the tavern and those other ones?
Well, I
Like,
think-
where do we stand on
I think the
that?
difference is there's a sidewalk
Yeah.
in front of
Depends
the
on
town,
circumstance.
and they're forcing pedestrians off the sidewalk onto the traveled way.
Just as long as we can, we can explain that to the business if it comes to that's why. It's not any kind of, we have to have a reason, right? Great. Thank you.
Any other questions? You're not allowed to have any, Derek. You have your Anybody else? Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron.
Okay, provincial budget. There's just the two items. What?
9.7.
Oh, physician recruitment, sorry. I'm all back.
So I have a request for decision in front of you in regards to our physician recruitment and retention program. We were successful in receiving $15,000 from the province. They issued another stream for funding for similar requirements. It is a required contribution from the municipality of $3,000 in order to receive that funding. This current proposal, which we've titled Collaboration in Community, really centers more around the retention piece. So our last program, well, it's current still, is Love Where You Work, and we built a website and things like that, more on the attraction side. So we've had feedback from physicians who have left. There's lots of reasons why physicians leave a community. Some we can control, some we can't. So the feedback we've received really fed into this. Some of the scenarios where partners couldn't get employment, or they didn't know where to go for volunteer opportunities in the community. And we know we have lots of opportunities for volunteering. So we did some work around trying to figure out what is existing that we can partner with and take advantage of to help. So Nova Scotia Works, they are responsible for helping providing employment solutions. They have agreed to partner with us, and that's a no-cost thing for us anyway. Volunteer Nova Scotia has a provincial database, and they agreed that we could pay a certain amount and get it on our existing Love Where You Work website, where they would filter it to our region. And so it'd be easier for them to find local opportunities for volunteering. That's really important because it gets them engaged in the community, it gets them rooted in and feeling like they really belong. Tourism Chester, so we thought, there's some great, if they want to really experience our municipality, we can pull together some packages, which also supports local businesses, and they can experience, all around the different communities, the assets that we have. And then finally, we have a program in there around the marketing side. So we have shifted a little less from the marketing for attraction, although what we have shifted to is marketing of what we're doing around retention, which serves as an attraction tool anyway. But really doing some more promotion around that, and then more advocacy for getting a residency program based in the South Shore, and hosting an appreciation event as well for physicians that are currently here, and continuing to try and get that feedback from them on what they love and maybe what they would like to see different. So what we're looking for today is approval from council for that $3,000 in order to accept the $15,000 grant from the province.
Anybody any questions?
Pretty simple.
Somebody prepared to move, we approve the request.
Motion to approve option one, accept the grant and approve 3,000 one-time municipal college position to the project.
Second,
Discussion,
where are we getting the money?
it's in,
Then budget.
It's in your budget,
yes.
okay?
all those in favor? Opposed, or carried. We had fairly good success at that last round. I mean, we had gotten new physicians.
We got one full-time position, and then or is it one part? I have my notes here so that I can remember. We have one new doctor recruited to the Hubbard's Clinic, and then a 1.3 position recruited to our health center. And the feedback was they noticed the website, they went to the website and found out more information about our municipality. We've delivered a lot of those Nova boxes, if you remember, part of the program, which will continue, is we have these gift boxes that showcase local artisans as a way of introducing them to our community. So we have delivered 6 of those, plus 2 more lately. And then we have 2 more site visits coming up next month with new prospective
But we've had
physicians.
some success.
Yeah, we have, yeah. So it's exciting.
The thing that really surprised me in the report was that the volunteer part of it.
Mhm.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have never imagined that would be something that they were looking, not that they don't volunteer, but I mean, that would be not one of the things that I would think that would be pertinent to them coming somewhere or finding out loud.
Yeah, and something that we can have an impact
Yeah.
on, right? That we can help
Absolutely.
showcase those
Yeah,
opportunities.
there's no trouble involved. There's lots of places.
There is,
volunteer.
yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I think I'm on the 9.8 provincial budget. And we've had the discussion about this before when it was proposed in their campaign material. Apparently it was as of whatever day it was this week, they approved the budget. It's in there. You know?
A little more detail on it.
Yeah.
A little more explanation on what we did, that's not a lot.
You have some information to hand it
It should be on the back.
So it's what we've quickly looked at some of the material that the province has been releasing related to the budget. And we knew that this was an item that had been discussed at the council before. So this is what we found so far that would have, I guess, would be of interest to council and would have implications. So that's all we have so far. It indicates that there will be further details. I have not seen any further details. I don't know if the Financial Measures Act has been introduced so that we can look at the legislative framework.
Yeah. What's our current tax rate residential property is 80.
It's our current general rate is 70.5 cents. When you add fire rates or village rates,
Yeah.
notionally it's around $1. So for properties that would be subject to the $2 rates, this would make it a $3 rate. For those property owners.
Yeah.
In October of last year, the finance team again looked at the impact, but it's impossible for us to come forward with something with confidence because we would need to have those further details. With what they identified was the number of properties and the assessed value of properties where we send notices to mailing addresses outside of Nova Scotia. So we don't know if this is probably very likely the very highest end of the range. but at that time identified a $250 million in assessment, $250 million of assessment that have a mailing address outside of Nova Scotia.
250 of revenue.
250 in assessment.
Oh, yeah.
So if you apply a $2 rate to that, it would be $5 million in revenue generated.
To whom? Who gets the revenue?
The province of Nova Scotia.
So is this going to be like a one-time,
Well, that's a whole other matter.
or whether it's going to be each year when taxes are paid?
The detransfer is gonna be one time. There's two taxes, the detransfer and then there's the annual. tax.
Well, this, we're just talking about
We're just talking about the.
transfer right now.
So
No, we're just talking about the residential tax rate.
So there's two initiatives. One would
Oh,
be,
really?
as we understand it in this release, the non-resident de-transfer tax of 5%. So on a $100,000 purchase, it would be $5,000. Then annually, as I would understand it, annually, there would be a $2 property tax rate in addition to the municipal.
I didn't see the backside of the
Okay.
story.
Yeah,
Sorry, Andrew. you got it.
It's bad.
I just want to say that, this sort of taxation is especially impactful to rural municipalities. Because proportionally, as you pointed out earlier, it's much, if we were offering water and sewer service and other forms of taxation, proportionally, the additional tax wouldn't feel as much to be as much, but you can understand now that,
What am I getting from? my
yeah,
service?
now suddenly
3 times as much.
3 times as much as compared if you were, say, in, the town of Kentville or something, where you're getting those other services, it may only be, 50% increase or something like that. It's just lumped in with other services. So this is going to feel, it's going to really sting people in that come from away that are in our municipality, I think.
And we have a high percentage of them,
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, the deed transfer tax
Well, that's,
is not,
I don't even
it's,
hardly
we
hear
can
about that.
probably live with that.
Yeah.
But it's the other part that, I would imagine there's not just our municipality, but towns of Mahone Bay and Lunenburg will really feel the impact as well.
Yeah, so some of us are gonna be impacted greater than others, and I know but I just, first off, I don't like the idea that the province of Nova Scotia is getting into our tax regime. Why are they charging property tax? That's what municipalities do, and they shouldn't even be there. If you want to tax, do it with your own tax rate. And the amount is just crazy land in the municipality of Chester. It's triple. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's no commitment whatsoever that I have seen, heard, or even had discussed that they will spend all the money they're going to get out of the municipality of Chester for anything in Chester. It's.
And further, I would say that, well, if you think about this whole thing, like they've already had an assessment growth that has naturally occurred over these last 2 years. This seems like a very strange time to levy a massive tax increase, because all those same people that are buying new properties now that are now uncapped, they're getting hit immediately with this transfer tax, and then 3 times the tax load once they purchase it. It just seems, it's like triple dipping,
it was a campaign promise. It was on their plate.
I know, but it's not going
No,
to
I know.
encourage people to
No.
want to buy here.
It's a very strange time. I could almost, if this proposal would have came out 7 years ago, when real estate sales were sort of flat and the values were more or less stagnant, I could see that there would have been more of a need. And maybe that's when this idea was first hatched, but implementing it now when they're already seeing unprecedented growth in their tax base because of values, why are they doing it now? It makes no sense.
And that assessment growth is causing us to pay more for education and all those things that are based on.
They're already getting more tax.
So what do we have as recourse as a municipality?
It's not. Tina had.
Sorry,
that
Tina.
for a while.
No, you go ahead.
So
I guess for me, it's not a surprise, because we were aware of this last fall, after the election, so it's not a surprise, so I can't pretend that I'm surprised here.
No.
I'm still shocked, absolutely, but the annual piece, actually, Dan, you had mentioned that, because that was a question I think Sharon had around, do we know if this is a one-time? But you had just mentioned, Dan, that you're thinking that it's an annual tax.
The deed
Yeah.
transfer.
Well, the deed I know is
Yeah.
once, that's like it always
There's
is.
no indication
Yeah.
that it's just isn't ongoing.
That's right,
That
so,
they just jumped into our tax world.
Yeah. yeah, I understand deed transfer, it's always once, I know that. But the annual piece around the non-resident property taxes is scared. Not surprised that it's, coming out. I'm not saying I'm supportive of it, but it's not a surprise because we were aware of it was happening. But again, we still don't, and my question would be to that would be, is we still then don't have an answer, because you've just indicated that we don't have an answer where those monies are going to be dedicated. Do we know, in terms of geography, do we know, Dan, you had mentioned when you were down in the weeds a little bit on those platform discussions, the current government's platform presentations, that it was around affordable housing, a fund to go into affordable housing. Is that still the case?
We don't know. Where the revenues generated would be used. Just what we've read in.
Okay. So we don't know geographically, and we don't know what fund to what target area it's going to go towards.
Not really.
At one time, it was affordable housing, I believe, and
That's
something
right.
else, I think.
There's been
was-
suggestions that it's.
It just hasn't indicated if it
That's
would
fair.
be general revenue or if it would be
Yeah.
similar to the tax on gasoline that is dedicated to roads.
Yeah.
It's not clear. Perhaps the legislation
Yeah.
will identify its
Yeah.
specifically targeted revenue.
So
Third, I'm
I
sorry.
see complexities with this, like, for example, if the non-resident owned housing is rented out for 12 months or longer, they will not. So just like, how are we going to manage all this? Like contracts, like we have to provide lease, like we're gonna have them provide lease agreements to us, and then it just seems like a whole other layer of complexity in our taxation.
It's a good question, because if a non-resident owns it, but yet it's a rental property,
And he's renting to Nova Scotians.
how does that fit in? Yeah, I don't know.
It doesn't matter who he rents to.
My understanding, though, is that there's not a role for the municipalities in.
Other than sending out the bill.
That's my understanding, but we haven't
But
officially.
if we bill them for tax that they say they don't, how do they?
I think it's the province, though, that's billing them. It's not supposed to be.
It's not coming through us?
It's not supposed to be from the informal discussions I've had. That's
Who's gonna send the bill?
my understanding is it's the province, but.
Well, I hope so.
I think we should find out, because
So my last thing that I want to mention was, we do have a scheduled visit from the MLA.
Okay.
I believe in May. I'm not sure if it's April or May, maybe it's next month. May. So I mean, we may have answers prior to that visit, but that would be a question that we could ask our representative, and she may or may not know, and she may have to take it away and bring back some concrete, definitive, fill in the blank for us.
Well, I
That
hope
would be
somebody
wonderful.
can. Yeah, she's already well aware that I'm not much of a fan of what they're doing.
Maybe we should write a letter
I think
to her
it's,
and ask her if she comes here and answer those questions.
Exactly, and it's certainly a topic for NSFM. I'm sure all municipalities would be,
Some of them, it doesn't have the same kind of impact.
no, I know, but I think that certainly the ones in the South Shore would support it, without a doubt.
Yeah, well, I'm glad they're gonna send the bill, because that's gonna be one of my other big things is, how do you explain, because if we send the bill, like,
We'll still get-
we're gonna do a real good job of clarifying, this money is the problems, nothing to do with me. It's bad enough now the way it is with half our tax bill being given some problems anyway.
Exactly. Sorry, I do have one more. So knowing that we have NSFM, that first week or whenever the dates were in May, I'm wondering, again, I know that the agenda has not been firmed up or maybe finalized, maybe it has, the program. Is there an opportunity on that spring event that there would be a minister or maybe the premier, I don't know, that would be nice. If the premier was able to make all the gathering of all the municipal units in Nova Scotia, that wouldn't be out of the question, I would think. So maybe there's an opportunity to have a well-formulated, respectful question of them that they would then have to present some of these definitive questions that we have, answers back.
Maybe it has come up at NSFM meetings in the past, once there was an action that, but in their sort of. Yeah, but there wasn't a lot of people who seemed aware or, or
So we're getting
concerned or anything. There was a couple of us, because it impacts a couple of us a whole lot more than it does most stuff.
Sorry, part B to that last question was, and I haven't really paid attention, I do remember seeing an email come through that we have a South Shore Municipal Units meeting, middle of April.
Yes.
So again, depending on what we want to do with this in terms of sharing our concerns, asking some questions, we could present it at that particular forum and get the support of the other South Shore units if they want to support it or not.
We could draft a letter to the province, copy to NSFM, and try to get some clarity, because I mean, first off, we don't even really know. We know that the tax is going to exist, but we have no clue the details.
And I think we need to know if they're going ahead with this, is the money that they're generating going to affordable housing in our area? Or
Well, and that would make a big difference in the way I look at it.
yes, exactly.
But I think many of our residents are gonna have their taxes, maybe non-residents, but they're residents. Their taxes are gonna be tripled overnight.
Triple overnight.
And I think if we say nothing, I think that's.
Scary.
That's not.
No, we have to make it clear to Rob.
A lot of
It's not acceptable.
A lot of those non-residents, and they're reasonably wealthy people, and they make considerable contributions
Yes,
to our community outside of taxes.
That's right.
And they're gonna be
Yeah.
less likely to do it now.
Absolutely.
I just don't know what the rationale, it's just the money grab, I guess,
Well, they
but
need the money.
I don't think it was something that like a big issue for residents of the province to say that, well, these guys should be paying more. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think it was a big
It's an
issue.
easy sell
Well,
though.
I know,
You're
but
taxing the people who don't live here.
And they're not
They're supposedly using up housing that if they sold it, it would be for affordable housing. Well, that's just not the case, because the non-residents don't own affordable housing.
And if they do it, if it's dumped into that fund like that, that's what it's for. That is exactly right.
So if they
That's
don't-
what they promised it to be.
The obvious target of non-residents that have $1 million property. We
Yeah,
have
of course
non-residents,
that's who it's
we have non-residents as well that have lesser property
Yes.
that are going to suffer.
Yeah.
I think it's obscene,
Absolutely.
just to do this, and I would like to see us do a letter.
Strong opposition to it.
Well, just outlining our concerns and the questions that we'd like to answer.
Yeah.
I think.
And it's not fair, as mad as they might get, just because they're not voters. That's
By
just,
saying nothing.
that's not right.
Acquiescing to it, and I think.
No wrong. We should send a strong message, like you say, Gary, because that's what we can do.
So
No, absolutely.
it's not in the best interest of municipalities.
Plus the encroachment on municipal tax.
Well, the encroachment on our
Yeah.
tax base, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So you get all kinds of ways to raise taxes,
That's right.
raise whatever you want.
Use all your lawyer props.
Yeah, that's right.
And then I'm glad that, I hope the province send them the bill, because if the municipality was sending them the bill, it wouldn't matter what I told anybody, they think I increased the taxes by $2.
Exactly, yeah. That's exactly right.
It's not right on any of it. I just don't.
Anyway, I guess we'll draft a letter and request.
We'll share that with you, council, before it's sent.
Okay, that's it. We're gonna take a 10-minute break, and then we have some bunch in camera. Or,
3 items, I think, in fairness.
yeah, are we gonna have to come back and make a decision on any of those? Or can I just adjourn?
Yes, I think we have to make a decision. Yeah.